The Washington Commanders offense had a bounce-back day of practice on Tuesday with the Baltimore Ravens defense, which brings up the question just how valuable is going up against this Washington Commanders defense. That and more on today's episode of Locked On Commanders.
You are Locked On Commanders, your daily podcast on the Washington Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Tuesday episode of Locked On Commanders, daily podcast covering the Washington Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And as always, thank you so much for making Locked On Commanders your first listen or view of the day every day. Coming to you here from Owings Mills, Maryland, following joint practice day number 1 between the Washington Commanders and the Baltimore Ravens. Of course, you can always subscribe to the Locked On Commanders podcast for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you want to continue this conversation with me, just head over to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnCommanders. I'm your host, David Harrison, on Twitter at DHarrison82, credentialed member of the media covering your Washington Commanders, Sports Illustrated's FanNation. Here with you every Monday through Friday, especially after practices like today's. And I appreciate your continued support for the show, especially all of the everydayers out there. On today's episode of Locked On Commanders, of course, we're going to talk about what happened on day 1 of joint practices with the Baltimore Ravens. Of course, the Washington Commanders coming out here to the Baltimore area, Owings Mills, Maryland, to conduct these practices. The game will take place Monday night at FedEx Field, and it was a bounce-back day for the Washington Commanders offense. Yesterday's practice, the final practice in Ashburn before coming out here to Owings Mills, not a great day for Sam Howell, the quarterback specifically, but also not for the offensive line, not for the wide receivers. Some drop passes that we talked about. Just a rough day overall for the offense, which was a little bit concerning coming into Tuesday, day 1 of joint practices against the Baltimore Ravens, because as we all expected, the Baltimore Ravens certainly coming out with a lot of energy, a lot of physicality, looking to make plays against the Washington Commanders here, and that's exactly what we got. But we also got a more resilient performance from the offense. Now, before we dive too deep into the offense, let's be honest, a lot of you want to hear about the fights, right? Of course, that's always kind of the biggest storyline coming out of some of these training camp practices. Now, unfortunately, I was watching the offense today. I was not watching the defense. The defense is where the real fights took place. There was some pushing and shoving on the offensive side of things as well for the Commanders, but the Commanders defense was the unit that was really involved in these fights. I will be with the Commanders defense tomorrow. I'll be on that side of the field. So if anything goes down that built up from today, I will be on hand to witness that personally and be able to tell you. But through the grapevine and through the wonder that is technology, I have gotten some updates and some information about those fights. Of course, one of them started between Commanders rookie cornerback Emmanuel Forbes and Ravens receiver Tylan Wallace. After one specific route, Forbes punched the ball out of Tylan Wallace's hands. Tylan didn't like that, took exception to it, decided to slap Emmanuel Forbes, who slapped him back, and then all hell broke loose after that. On the very next play, Washington cornerback Danny Johnson punched the ball loose again from another Ravens receiver, this one tight end Mark Andrews. And after that, Mark Andrews decided to take matters into his own hands, took Danny Johnson into his own hands, and body slammed him onto the playing field, causing another scuffle between Ravens and Commanders players. The coaches had to get involved, separated everybody, and then brought all the players together in one huddle. Ravens and Commanders players all in one huddle together, getting their butts chewed, getting told, hey, this isn't what we're here to do. Get back to business, get back to work. There was some light shoving on the offensive side, including some coming before the second team unit even snapped the ball. Like, first time the second team offense was on the field for the Commanders, second team defense for the Ravens. I don't know. The offensive line, defensive line met at the line of scrimmage, started pushing, shoving, a little bit of trash talking. So a little bit of a scuffle, but nothing too big. There was a little bit of a skirmish later on that we'll talk about as well. So between the two fights and the oddly long breaks in between segments of practice today, I think that I've come to one conclusion, and that is that Baltimore Ravens practice is not nearly as contentious as Washington Commanders practices are. I see players all the time out in Ashburn. I see defenders trying to knock balls out of Commanders offensive players' hands, out of the quarterback's hands sometimes. I mean, you know, if there's an interception or a fumble, the offensive players will do it to the defensive players, and nobody gets in their feelings enough that they have to cause a fight or certainly body slam anybody. I guess, I don't know, maybe it's different in Baltimore when it's not your teammate doing it. And to me, it's secure the ball. Secure the ball. Nobody can knock it out of there. You should be securing the ball at all times. So I spoke to one Commanders player specifically who kind of mentioned the same thing, and then also brought up the long breaks in between practices. And, that never happens in Washington. It was kind of weird to just sit there on the practice field for a while, waiting to start up again. And It definitely stood out to the media members that I was around as well. Kind of a weird occurrence. But at the end of the day, they got 2-ish hours right between the breaks. Got about 2 hours of practice in here in Owings Mills. Certainly some good work. And now let's turn back to the offense's play on the field. Now that we kind of talked about the fights, of course, videos of those fights are circulating. I think Channel 4 out here in DC had the most popular video of the Emmanuel Forbes fighter, or maybe it was a Mark Andrew going around. I can't remember which one, but they had a pretty good angle on one of those fights. So if you want to see footage of it, you can certainly go out there and find that. But I'm not going to share it on here because we're not allowed to, according to network rules, and I don't want to get fired. So back to the offense again after a poor showing on day 15 in Ashburn, day 16. Much better. However, Ravens outside linebacker Odafe Owe is going to come away happy with his performance as he got to Sam Howell not once, not twice. Where are my LeBron James fans at? 3 times he got to the quarterback Sam Howell in 11 on 11s. But outside of that, the offensive operation looked mostly smoother for the Commanders than it had again earlier this week. And at certain points during training camp as well. In lineman one-on-one drills, so offensive lineman against defensive lineman, Washington starters went 5-4 against the Ravens, so 5 wins, 4 losses, so a winning record. You know what I mean? That's kind of the best thing about that. The starting defensive line, the biggest win against the Ravens starting defensive line came from left guard Sadiq Charles, who was matched up against Baltimore defensive tackle Broderick Washington, beat him right off the line. And then by the end of the rep, Broderick Washington was face down in the dirt down here on the practice field. Sadiq was the only undefeated Commanders lineman that I charted in the one-on-ones. The worst reps probably came from center Nick Gates, who got driven straight back after the snap. Would have been right in Sam Howell's lap if it was a rep by defensive tackle Travis Jones. And then Chris Paul also lost to Ravens defensive lineman Brent Urban on an overreach where he leaned too far forward, and Brent Urban took advantage of that momentum, just boom, went right past him. We've talked about that with Chris Paul before. It has gotten a little bit cleaner, but old habits die hard. So we did see Chris Paul kind of revert to that just a little bit. Rookie tackle Braden Daniels got left in the dust on one rep by Ravens linebacker Malik Ham after Ham hit him with a crazy spin move. Honestly, I don't even blame Braden Daniels for that. Like that spin move was so sick that I don't know if anybody would have gotten past that. But Daniels did finish strong-ish, if you want to consider that. So after getting beat by Baltimore linebacker David Ojabo on a later one-on-one rep, the coaches reset them. Braden Daniels won that rep, and then they reset them again, and he won that rep as well. So he took 2 of the 3 and won actually more and more. The second win was actually better than the first win, if you want to take that. So what I took away from that, obviously, Braden Daniels sticking in there, showing some heart, showing some fight back for his coaches, but also David Ojabo basically doesn't have a second move. Basically did the same thing to Braden Daniels 3 times, and Braden got better against it all 3 times. Grain of salt. I was not with the coaches, so I don't know. Maybe they said, hey, hit him with that move again, so we can teach him how to handle that move. Maybe that's what happened. Give David Ojabo a little bit of credit there. But that's what that basically looked like in the one-on-ones. Again, the starters going 5-4, so winning more of those starting reps than they lost. The offensive line was mostly solid on Tuesday, but they were also helped by quick passes in 11-on-11 drills and Sam Howell's decisive throwing. That's coming up next on our latest version of Howell Watch on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode of Locked On Commanders is brought to you by eBay Motors. Our partners at eBay Motors have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Football host Vinny Iyer to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week, all season long. Whether you're prepping for a draft or scouting the waiver wire, every week we're going to provide you players that are guaranteed to fit your roster. So with draft prep underway and for the upcoming season, let's see who Vinny Iyer has picked out for this week's eBay Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Pick of the Week. Looking for a safe quarterback to take as a starter later after you wait on the position? Then you can ride with Minnesota Vikings quarterback Kirk Cousins, one of the most consistent, healthiest, and most reliable passing producers. Washington fans, you are familiar with Kirk Cousins. Cousins has great weapons in year 2 of a pass-happier offense under Kevin O'Connell, from Justin Jefferson to rookie Jordan Addison. He'll once again drive a team that is loaded first at the other positions. Vinny Iyer from Locked On Fantasy Football is going to help you win your fantasy championship, and eBay Motors knows a championship team is all about each player being the perfect fit, and the same goes with your vehicle. With eBay Guaranteed Fit and over 122 million parts and accessories for your vehicle right at your fingertips, you can make sure your ride stays running smoothly. Air filters, brakes, batteries, taillights, alternators, shock struts, you name it, eBay Motors has it. And they make sure it's the right fit for your car, because eBay's Guaranteed Fit helps you understand exactly what part you need for your vehicle the first time. So go forth, switch gears, crank the AC, and say goodbye to sweating if your ride needs a little fixing up, because now you know you'll always be set up for success from the get-go. With eBay Guarantee Fit, everything for your vehicle is just a click away. Everything your vehicle is calling for is just a click away. For the parts and accessories that fit your vehicle, just look for the green check. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices at ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guarantee Fit, only available to U.S. customers, eligible items only, exclusions apply. Thanks again for making Locked On Commanders your first listen or view of the day. Every dayers again. I appreciate you all for coming through. Subtexters, I appreciate you all for hanging out with me during this joint practice on Tuesday. We'll be back at it, of course, on Wednesday, off Thursday, but then back Friday and Saturday, off again Sunday, and then we've got game day coming up on Monday. We got a new subtexter just in time for practice on Tuesday morning, so I want to give a huge welcome and thank you to Rob, who is also an everydayer. So, of course, that's doubly great. As always, appreciate you, and I appreciate everybody like you. Rob seemed to enjoy his first day as a subtexter. So if you want to join in on the fun, just like Rob did today, get on that action by going to joinsubtext.com/lockedoncommanders. And you can get all the great information that I'm trying to pass out to you guys. And look, let me know if you want more, if you want something different, if you want something in addition to, I will do my best to make sure that you are getting your money's worth out of that venture. Your first 2 weeks are free, so you can dive in, see if you like it. If you do, great. If you don't, no harm, no foul. Howell watched day 16 now, again, coming from Owings Mills, Maryland, after the first joint practice between the Washington Commanders and the Baltimore Ravens. And Washington quarterback Sam Howell went 6 for 9 in 11-on-11 team drills on Tuesday, with his best set coming on the second session, where he went 4 of 5 and delivered a beautiful pass to Jahan Dotson. We're going to talk about that here in just a little bit. Now, it wasn't a perfect outing by any means, but it was far better than the day prior when he and his offense struggled, just weren't on the same page for the entire practice. If it was not an inaccurate pass, it was a drop pass. If it wasn't a drop pass, it was pass protection. Just not a good day overall, but a much better day, I think, on day 16 in contrast, right? Now, there was a lot of media out here, right? So both Baltimore Ravens beats and the Washington Commanders beats are out here. So there's a lot of media members out here. And while I was actually scrolling through for fight details, because I knew we wanted to talk about it here on this episode, even though I wasn't right there on that sideline, watching, I actually stumbled upon some different conflicting numbers from people who were also charting 11-on-11. So the thing that I want to make sure that we divulge and come transparent with is, for my 11-on-11s, I'm trying to deliver you guys the most accurate, realistic information that I can possibly give you. So what that means is, if there is a practice sack, we talked about this recently, every day, as you remember, the coaches tell the players, complete the play, right? So if there's a practice sack, the quarterback knows, okay, I've been sacked. Go ahead, complete the play, find a guy to throw it to, throw the ball. If you catch the ball, run after, finish the play, right? I don't count those. So if there's a practice sack, for me and my charting information and what I give to you in this episode, in these episodes, I kill the play right then and there, right? That's not a throw. It's not an attempt. It's not a completion. It's not an incompletion. I kill the throw. Now, if there's something notable, like Emmanuel Forbes runs from halfway across the stinking football field to make an interception, even though the interception wouldn't have counted because the play's dead, I tell you that amazing information because the athletic feats of these players certainly still applicable, but I don't put it in the final numbers and stat count, right? So that's important, because if there's a penalty that brings back a play, again, that throw never happened in the stat box, so I don't bring that to you, right? So if you see conflicting information, especially out here this week with many Baltimore beat members, Washington beat members, I don't know how everybody else charts throws or counts throws, and it's not my business to tell them how to do it. It's my business to tell you how I do it, so you understand where my numbers are coming from. So now that we have that straight, let's go to the drives, right? Let's get beyond the stat box and let's talk about the drive-by-drive number. So drive one, very first rep, is a play action rollout to the right side, where Odafe Owe got his first sack of the day. First play, first sack. It wasn't even hard, coming off the left side of the defense, so the right side of the offensive line. Sam Howell really never had a chance. He did get a pass away, though, completed that one pass over the middle off of play action, the only pass of that set. So 1 for 1 on the first set of 11-on-11 plays with one sack. Drive two, his best series of the day for him. Also the best series of the day probably for the first team offense. Started off 1 for 1, a quick right side route to Terry McLaurin. The next pass was incomplete, but it was really cool. A lot of pressure coming. Sam Howell immediately got rid of the ball. Very smart, headsy play. Don't take the sack. I think that's something that we talked about on that safety. He had some contributions to that safety happening against the Cleveland Browns. Certainly, I put the sack that happened against the Cleveland Browns on Sam Howell more than I put on anybody else. So you want to see him kind of getting back into that mindset of see pressure, face pressure, but if it's coming and I can't get away from it, go ahead and get rid of the ball, live to play another down with better yardage, right? Next pass, a quick middle route to Terry McLaurin, 2 for 3, and then a quick left side curl to Jahan Dotson that might have been the best throw of the day, to be quite honest with you, even though it's probably only about a 6-yard, 7-yard gain. But Kyle Hamilton, the safety, was trying to break down on the ball. Sam Howell got rid of it quickly, delivered the ball quickly, and put it right in the perfect spot for Jahan Dotson to grab it just past the outstretched hands of safety Kyle Hamilton, making him 3 for 4, and then completed his fifth pass of the set as well, middle route to Curtis Samuel. And I want to point out here, so 4 for 5 in that second set, and see the accuracy come back, the quick decision making, the quick routes, all of those things. But also that final rep, Chris Rodriguez Jr., the rookie running back, has been getting some work with the first team, and I want to praise him for that particular play. Was in on pass protection, and the Baltimore Ravens had an extra rusher coming. Chris Rodriguez stood in there, absorbed the defender, fixed on his block, and gave Sam Howell the time he needed to get that ball out. The third drive of 11-on-11s for the Sam Howell-led first-team offense started off with another sack by Odafe Owe, again, this time from the left side of the offense, but then his next play was actually delivered, and it went 1 for 1, a quick slant to Terry McLaurin on the left side of the defense. His next pass was a quick out to tight end Cole Turner, and that's where we had our offensive scuffle for the day, a late hit on Cole Turner, laid on him by a Baltimore Ravens defender, drew flags from the officials on hands, but then also through the ire of the Washington Commanders offensive teammates of Cole Turner. His final pass, a play action pass that went to Jahan Dotson, also completed, making Sam Howell 2 for 3 on that third set. The fourth set, no official passes, whether it was from holds, whether it was from penalties or holds, but whether it was from sacks, no official passes on the fourth set. The first play of the set was actually a run by Antonio Gibson to the left side of the offensive formation, where he absolutely trucked Baltimore Ravens safety Marcus Williams. I mean, it was so bad that typically when you have an aggressive play like that, the players kind of get up, they get in each other's faces a little bit. It's, you didn't hit me that hard, and all this stuff. But Marcus Williams got up and just kind of walked off the field defeated. I mean, you can't really blame him. A very hard hit laid on him by running back Antonio Gibson, but hopefully he's healthy, because obviously you want everybody to stay healthy during these practices. Unfortunately, that was the best play of the drive, because Owe got in for his third sack of the day on Sam Howell following that, and then after a false start was preceded that. So you had that run play, then a false start, then a sack, and then Howell's next pass attempt was completed, but there was a holding penalty calling it back. So it's your day old or your lifelong story of 8 yards forward, 15 yards back, whatever you want. I didn't see which player specifically, but I do know that the false start and the hold both came on the left side of the offensive line. That was it for Sam Howell and the first team offense. So overall, not a terrible day. Certainly didn't finish, I think, the way that you want to. I'm sure that they're going to talk about that in meetings, try to come out tomorrow firing off a little bit better and also finish a little bit better. Injury updates from practice. Benjamin St-Juste was out here for stretches, but was not wearing pads, and also had kind of a leg sleeve on his leg while he's dealing with that ankle injury. Cornerback Nick Whiteside also out here, not in pads. Cornerback Nick Whiteside, tight end Logan Thomas, and receiver Kyrick McGowan were all also out here doing stretches, doing things like that, but did not have pads on, did not participate beyond some stretches. Whiteside didn't even stretch, to be honest with you. Chase Young continued his usual. He was out there for stretches, some individual work, I think, but he did not do anything in the teams or the group options or group sessions, dealing still with that stinger, self-reported stinger. I'm not sure he's going to play in Baltimore or play against Baltimore or not, to be quite honest. The only time I saw him get onto the practice field and not on the sideline is during one of the fights where he threw on his helmet, went out there to help break up the scrum, I assume. So it was a busy day for Terry McLaurin here on day one, joint practices against the Baltimore Ravens. So we're going to hear a little bit from him. I got a little bit of his presser then to share with you after practice, and then we'll catch up with Jeremy Reeves, an interview that was done in scrum fashion with him earlier this week. Both of those interviews coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Oh, yeah, man, that's the nature of the game, man. You play football, you play fast, you flying around. It's a physical game, so there will be, some heated moments here and there, that's part of it. You just go line back up and do it again, man. So I'm excited, it'll be interesting because they play a certain style of football that is well known. They've been doing it for years, and we kind of developed this culture defensively. We play a certain style of football, so it's going to be fun. I'm excited.
Does it add any excitement that you guys get to have a couple of practice against Lamar Jackson and maybe helps you for this season?
Hell, excuse my language. Heck yeah, man. I mean, that dude, he's a baller, man. He's a well-known name. We know what he's fully capable of as far as out of the pocket and with his arm. That doesn't get talked about enough. And they got weapons over there now. You know, they got receivers over there and tight ends and, you know, running backs. And so it really challenges our rules and our principles on defense as far as to, you know, playing sound football. You know, you got to be gap sound. You got to be responsible in the passing game because they're going to test you 1,000%.
It's fun going against a different team too. You go against each other for so long. You know what I mean? You kind of get familiar with your teammates. They get familiar with what you do. When you come out here against another team, it's good to have a measuring stick of how you've made it up until this point in camp.
And you see a big...
This is my first one. So I didn't really know what to expect, but, you know, you come in ready to compete, and I'm always ready to compete. So it was definitely fun for my first one.
Did you even see, like, for Sam, the young quarterback going through this, changes in him throughout the practice, the more you guys work against him?
Yeah, he's really poised, man. I think he sees the field really well, and he's going to give us a chance to make opportunities on the perimeter, which has been great. His timing, I felt like, was really good with us today. As soon as we were getting out of our breaks, all of our receivers, the ball was right there, and he gave us a chance to run with it as well. So I think he did a great job, even when he had to improvise and roll out a little bit, to still keep his eyes downfield and continue to give us a chance to make plays. So he's been the same guy since we started camp and since he stepped in at the last game last year. He's just really poised.
Was quick game an emphasis?
I think just really we just want to work whatever the game plan is for that practice. You know, I think we have a plethora of ways to get the ball down the field and getting the ball in our playmakers' hands. And specifically on the quick game stuff, as receivers, we just want to make sure our timing and spacing is on point. And I feel like we really capitalize on some of those opportunities. So I feel like we got to keep that stuff going.
But Terry, for you, when you're going against like Humphrey versus Kendall Fuller and Patrick Day, what does it change for you? Just even like your intensity inside it?
Definitely. I think Marlon and Kendall, they both are the two vet corners who are really good at what they do. They're very, really good technicians. And I think Kendall is a different style of corner than Marlon is. So it's good to go against a guy like Marlon where he's going to be a little bit more firm at the line. He's going to be a little bit more handsy, you know what I mean? And it forces you to really use your technique and be physical because you know he's going to be physical at the top of the route. He's going to be physical at the line, and he's going to try to punch the ball out. So when I'm going against him, I just want to match his physicality, but also be clean with my feet. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, he has to, when you're a receiver, they stop when you stop. You got to be efficient. So getting to work against Kendall has been great as well because he really forces you to be efficient in and out of your breaks because he's so patient. And sometimes if you're not running or you're opening up your stride, he's going to squat at the top of your route. So it really forces me to make sure I'm always selling a vertical route. So going against two veteran guys is only going to help me and the other receivers.
Did you know that about Humphrey, or did you just kind of learn that out here today and just kind of adjust as you go?
Yeah, we played the Ravens a few years ago, so studying him, I knew he was a physical corner. He could definitely run, and you know his game is really big on physicality. And the thing about me is I like to be physical as well. So it's a great battle going against a guy like that. You know, when we're going one-on-ones, I want to go against him. He wants to go against me. When we're going 7-on-7, it's the same thing. So I think it's an iron sharper and iron thing. You know, he's a Pro Bowl player, really one of the top corners in this league, and it's great work for me and the other receivers.
Hey, Jerry, have you skirmish on this side? What did you see in that after that play? I think it was past the pole.
Yeah, man. At the end of the day, you just want to protect everybody that's out here. Obviously, they're trying to make plays. We want to make plays, but at the end of the day, we're going to protect our teammates, and that's what happens at camp. Sometimes things get a little physical, but you know, it didn't get too bad. So at the end of the day, you know, it's just guys competing. But at the end of the day, we want to look out for each other's careers and make sure you know, we're not doing anything that's too over the line.
I know Ron and Duran were both talking about, you know, want to make sure to focus on football and improve it, like going into tomorrow. What's your advice as one of your team leaders, veterans, to some of the younger guys to avoid that stuff tomorrow?
No, definitely. I think one thing that was really impressive was offensively, I feel like our tempo was really good. It kind of really showed why we practice at the high intensity that we practice at, and I feel like we really got to a place where we were just very efficient. But it's still the little details that are coming up for us. You know, the procedural things. EB says those are mental errors. You know what I mean? We can handle make sure the spacing's right, make sure you're running the right route, but the mental errors we got to cut back on, myself included. You know what I mean? So those are the little things I'm looking for. I'm going to try to be critical of myself and just encourage the other guys and the young guys especially. You know, focus on the film today, but tomorrow's a new day. It's a new opportunity, and the plays that you didn't make, you have opportunity to come out there and change the narrative tomorrow. And I think you just got to have a next play mentality, and but always be in a competitive spirit, competitive mindset, because that's how the ebbs and flows of the game goes. The defense gonna make plays, you're gonna make plays, and if the team, when you got to get to the end of practice, you get a little tired, that's when the team is going to have the most successful, who's going to execute and be on top of the little things.
Jerry, any routes or concepts that you were happy with the timing and spacing?
I mean, I feel like I said, our quick game has been great. I don't want to give away too much of what we're doing, but I just think we're just really trying to be on time with the quarterback. You know what I mean? We're getting certain looks where it's press man or a little off technique. We still want to be in the spot that Sam's going to expect us to be in, because this offense is really predicated on a lot of the spacing and the timing. So if we're taking too long in and out of our breaks, that's throwing off Sam. It's hurting the quarterback. It's hurting the O-line. So he's really made an emphasis of everybody doing their job.